this episode, we'll be learning about psychedelic integration and reconnecting with our purpose from a writer, a speaker, and a coach. He is the co founder of Texture Life Coaching and founder of The Integrated Man. Welcome to the show, Keith. How are you doing?
I'm really happy to be here. Thanks to have me.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. I appreciate your presence here today. Thank you. Thank you for making out the time to be on this episode with us. And I would just love us to dive into it already because I'm super excited to learn about this psychedelic integration and, the integrated man, helping men to reconnect back with their purpose. So I would just love us to learn from your life journey. Like, what led you kids to co-found Textual Life Coaching and also found the integrated man. Sorry, the integrated man.
Yeah, these things are certainly intertwined in my own personal path and my own journey with psychedelics and my own journey with getting in touch with my masculinity have gone hand in hand. And so I have experienced firsthand what it's like to not have guidance when exploring psychedelics and to not have guidance in exploring my own masculinity and what it means to be a man. And I my path has been having to figure it out on my own as I went. And that has been challenging at times. It's been quite rewarding as well. But I started these projects in order to serve as an exponent for others seeking to bring themselves into integration through the psychedelics or with men through getting in touch with their own masculinity so that people have some guidance, so that people have a framework, because oftentimes in our individualized culture, we're expected to just figure it out on our own. And this is the story of many people. And I don't like that story. I like the story in which we come together and we pool our knowledge and wisdom that we've accumulated, and we create new ways of doing things that honor the individual's own unique journey, as well as the communal aspects that unify us. So, with the integration coaching, it's helping people to make sense of or prepare for or bring into their being the understandings gleaned from the psychedelic experience. And with my work with men, it's helping them to get in touch with their true selves, their core selves, and not the self that the culture presupposes that one must be, but the self that is the highest self, the true self, so that we can trust ourselves and move through the world in integrity while trusting ourselves.
I love that. Thanks so much for sharing that. You mentioned of connecting with your masculinity, like getting in touch with that part of yourself. Can you tell us about it? Like, how are you able to connect with your masculinity? How are you able to accept what it brings along with it?
Yeah. So there's a lot of components to it, but ultimately there's these forces in the world. There's a feminine force and a masculine force, and they swirl together. And so I often think of the Taoist symbol of the yin and yang, which shows the interplay of these forces. The masculine is swirling into the feminine swirling into the masculine. There's an interplay, there's a dance, and they each have a point of the other within them. So the masculine contains the feminine contains the masculine. So the whole enterprise is very nuanced. So there's many different ways to go about as a man getting in touch with your own masculinity, for me, it comes down to one, honoring the truth in your heart. I feel like the heart is the greatest teacher. And as men and as boys, we're not taught about the heart. We're not taught to listen to the heart. We're taught to oftentimes lose ourselves in our work in order to provide, or we're taught to only show a certain spectrum of emotions that includes aggression but doesn't include softness. Uh, so a lot of the work is actually deconditioning ourselves to the cultural expectations of what being a man is, in order to allow the fullness of our masculinity to blossom. And there's lots of things that I draw on in my own work. One being kind of an archetypal way of seeing things, which archetypes meaning an enduring symbol that exists across time and across cultures. And so that's one way to think about it. And there's a well-known book in the men's work space called King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. And it explores these four different archetypes and how embodying them properly brings about a healthy masculinity. But I feel like ultimately the work, the importance of the work, the central theme is to embody oneself authentically. And that, that transcends masculinity and femininity, but it's the most important aspect of the work, in my opinion.
Yes, yeah, I believe so too. And that's how we, get to know who we truly are, right? Once we're able to embrace that aspect of our lives and also work on balancing the old forces basically that are in power in our lives, like the masculine side flowing into the feminine side and integrating it into each other, basically makes us to be truly who we are or who we're supposed to be. Yeah. And also,
Yeah.
yes, I also accepting whatever comes with it, whatever traits and characters, and work trying to iron everything out and become a better person basically. Yeah.
Yeah. And that is the goal, to and I think that it's the same thing, becoming a better person and becoming who you actually are.
Mm,
They are the same thing, because who you are at your core is this bountiful, beautiful human being who moves in love and generosity and wisdom and guidance and all of these benevolent qualities. This is of the nature of our true selves.
mm. Yeah, that's true. But for someone out there who is asking, Keith, what is psychedelic integration? Like, I've never heard that word before in my life. How can you enlighten us on this, and what is it all about?
Yeah, so this is a phrase that people might be hearing more about in recent years, which is a good thing, because there's the psychedelic experience, right? Which human beings, have been exploring for who knows how many thousands of years, um, in various forms, in ritual forms, and personal exploration forms. And the emphasis now that is being placed on integration is an important thing, because what integration is bringing this massive, majestic, ecstatic experience that the psychedelic experience is, and bringing that into one's understanding, while bringing oneself into alignment with this highest self that we're talking about. So I think of integration in the way of, we are a swirl, almost a galaxy of different parts. And so all of the parts of ourselves some of them are in their proper place. This is when we're in integrity with ourselves. Some of them are in improper places, or flung far out, or buried under the sand where we have to excavate them in order to actually even look at them. And integration is bringing all of the pieces of ourselves into harmonious orbit around the center. So this is how I think of integration on a psychological level. And the psychedelic work is the same way. It's to, in the psychedelic experience, there's actually an effect of a lowering of the gates of attention or awareness that allows more information in than our brains typically allow us to experience. And so part of the integration work is we're being faced with all of these, images and themes and memories and particular aspects of ourselves. And in order to not get blown over by the enormity of that, or not lose ourselves in it, or not just be stuck in confusion, we have to integrate those experiences. And that can look like many different things. There's, you know, without integration, someone might eat some psychedelic mushrooms or might go sit in an ayahuasca circle and then just go back into their daily life without processing the experience, and it can be very destabilizing. With integration, there's ways of bringing that experience into one's being so it doesn't just remain, oh, this is a crazy experience I had. It becomes a part of you. And so we can do this in many, many ways. And some people really find benefit from making art. Some people really find benefit from immersing themselves in nature. Some people find benefit from processing with a therapist or a coach or a friend. Some people find a lot of benefit from journaling or witnessing their dreams and recording their dreams. And there's many, many ways to integrate. The important thing is to have the intention and to allow oneself the space to integrate it. Again, because these experiences are so far reaching, so out there, so ecstatic, they bring you to the limits of the experience of life.
Yeah.
And people can get lost out there if they go so far out but don't know how to bring it all back in.
Wow. So how do you help people to, go on this journey of the psychedelic integration? Like, are there like some things to pay attention to? Because I know it's a bit broad and wide, and if you're not careful, yeah, one could go wrong. So as a coach that you are, can you help us like guide us in the way we should successfully do this? Yeah.
I would say the integration actually starts before, ideally it starts before you even consume the psychedelic substance. So bringing your awareness to, one, why am I doing this? Why am I choosing to go through this experience? And then two, what do I want to get out of this? How do I want to utilize this transformative experience to bring about a beneficial change in my life? So people will often talk about intentions. What are your intentions that you're bringing to the journey? And this is an important thing that, again, it's beautiful that this is being emphasized as the psychedelic renaissance emerges. So people aren't just going in blind and not knowing what they're getting themselves into, or going in just willy-nilly and not really preparing for what may come up. But that's where I think I would always start, is with the preparation. do you know what you're getting yourself into? Of course, if you haven't ever experienced a psychedelic journey, then you're not going to be able to have a context for what you're getting yourself into. But you can prepare, you can do your research, you can talk to people, you can talk to friends, you can talk to people who have experience.
Mm.
And, we all have some degree of context in that we experience dreams every night, which is a somewhat similar psychological phenomenon. Um, but then bringing your intentions to the forefront before you enter that space so that I really want to figure out what my uh, attachment style is and how that has impacted my relationships, or I really want to figure out how I can forgive this friend of mine who I harmed in the past, or I really want to figure out what my block is that is keeping me from flourishing, or any number of things that will help guide the process so that when you're in it, you're not just amidst a vast sea with choppy waters on a small boat without any idea of what direction to turn. You're actually in a vessel where you have your sights set on a particular direction. You have your map, you have your compass, you have your oar, and you're moving toward the direction of your healing. So that's always where I would recommend starting, is with the preparation. And then, of course, there's the after integration as well, which I always tell people the most important thing, or one of the most important things, is do your homework. So a lot of people get downloads when they're in the psychedelic space, which is to say, understandings about themselves and where they may be going astray in their lives, or where they might be able to blossom, and or things that they have to do, things they need to say to somebody. People will often get these downloads, and if we're not following through on the things that are coming through, then those issues are not going to be resolved. So I always tell people, do your homework and really get in touch with, is this understanding, okay, I need to apologize to this person I harmed 10 years ago. Does this, in my now sober state, does this feel authentic to me still? If yes, then start approaching that, start putting that into practice, and see how that transforms your life. But when people don't do their homework, then it doesn't necessarily matter how many journeys they keep going back to, because they're not acting on it. The psychedelic trip is only one portion of the whole process. Following through and actually putting the understandings into practice so as to change your life in a more beneficial way is, you know, at least half of the task.
Mm, mm. Wow. So I mean, what I got from what you said right now is, us setting that intention from the beginning, knowing that from the beginning, yeah, yes, yeah, this is what I want to get out of this psychedelic experience or integration. And afterwards, after getting all the downloads, being able to filter that out and know what to do, the action steps to carry out, after you've gotten information that you want to get or you got from the experience. I mean, this for me is a bit wild, and I believe it's something that one could use to improve one's life or to get to know one better. I've never tried it before, so I'm so curious to like learn about it from you. How has your own experience been like with it? How has it changed your life or turned your life around? Can you share some personal experiences?
It's completely transformed my life.
Mm,
I attribute the clarity I have in my direction that I'm moving in the world almost entirely to my utilization of psychedelics.
mm,
my my psychedelic experiences have brought me um, a sense of peace and a sense of trust in myself that is extremely resilient. And I didn't have these things before. And who's to say how much of that is simply the process of maturing as you get older? But I certainly attribute the clarity of my vision moving forward to my work with psychedelics. I attribute the depth of many of my relationships that I now have uh, with friends and loved ones to my usage of psychedelics. I attribute my openness and my curiosity in large part to my usage of psychedelics. Yeah, I would say that it's a fundamental aspect of my growth journey. And who's to say what degree that will continue to play in my life as I move forward? Um, but I trust myself. So I listen and I feel into when it feels right to go back to those spaces. And I am careful to not overdo it. I'm careful to not underdo it. But I know that when I feel like I'm in a space that is particularly confused, or if I'm falling into unhelpful patterns in my life, I know that going into a psychedelic journey will help to bring clarity, will help to clear the lenses that just get fogged over and caked with dust by virtue of living in this busy, confusing world. And when we can clear our lenses, then we can see clearly. And if we can see clearly, we know where to go. And if we know where to go and we have the heart to go, to follow through, then we put one foot in front of the other and we move in the direction we're supposed to be moving. And this is something that I gained for certain from my own personal utilization of psychedelics.
Hi, friend. Are you enjoying this episode? We would love to hear from you. Kindly send us a feedback. Are you following us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, maybe on YouTube and other podcast platforms? Are you following us on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook? We would love to connect with you on all platforms. Links and further details are available in the show notes of this episode. Thank you. Wow, that's amazing. That's good. I mean, now I'm so curious to know, like, when you started out using psychedelics or going into that space as a beginner, what was like the first thing you did? Like, what's the smallest thing that's or the smallest action step that a beginner can take in order to start this journey?
Well, it takes courage to go there. It takes courage to take the dose of whatever it is, because it brings our understanding, it brings our state of consciousness to a very, very different place that is so foreign to our everyday experience. And you can meet very challenging places when you go there, places within yourself. And so it really takes courage to go through with it. And no matter how many times I take some mushrooms, for example, I always feel at least some sense of apprehension or nervousness going into it, because I know that I'm going to go to a place that is totally different. And so the ego gets scared, because you know people call these things ego dissolving substances. And so the ego wants to cling on, uh, and so the ego gets scared. But that is the very first step, I would say, is sourcing the courage within yourself to be able to take up the task of going there. and and then from there, it's I mean, it's however you want to approach it. Some people wade in the shallow end of the pool by microdosing, or yeah, taking small doses to just kind of get a sense of what it's like, and that's a good way of doing it. Some people dive right into the deep end of the pool and take a heroic dose and have their world changed in a moment, and that's a fine way of doing it. I mean, I would say all of the ways of experiencing it are fine, as long as you are safe with people you trust implicitly, and you know what you're getting into. And oftentimes when people get into difficult spaces or have bad experiences, it's attributable to one of those things not being there. They're not in a safe space. Maybe they're in a party or a music festival, and and again, those are fine ways of doing it too, as long as you have those criteria. But they're maybe not in a safe space, or they maybe don't know what they're getting into, or they're not aware of how much they're taking, or they're with people that they don't actually trust. And this is where people get into tough spots potentially.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, ultimately having the courage to go there, and then doing it in a way that honors the tremendousness of these things and is not taking them frivolously. I think if you have those things, the respect for it and the courage to do it, then that's a good place to start.
Yeah, yeah. We need that courage to just start. If you want to go on that kind of journey, you have to take on the courage and the strength to just pull through and create that safe environment, safe people, safe space for you to jump into a space where you could explore and become or learn more about yourself, basically. Well, I'm so curious to know about, this psychedelic integration. Is it the same thing as shadow integration, or are they different things?
I would say that there is certainly considerable overlap between those things. The shadow integration is this concept that emerges from Jungian psychology, that is looking at the parts of ourselves that we are shy to look at, or that we have buried in the unconscious mind, or that we carry shame about, or that we carry fear about, or all of these components of the shadow. And the task of shadow integration is to face all of those aspects of ourselves, and to look at the areas that we feel ashamed, and to look at the areas that we may have buried in our childhood, and to try to dredge them up in a compassionate way, in order to say to those aspects, you are part of me, come into the center. And in this way, we approach our wholeness, which is our birthright, rather than sweeping things under a rug or burying things deep in the dirt and pretending they're not there, and then moving through the world and experiencing this tension or this splitting, where we feel that there's just something wrong, but maybe we can't put our hands on it, or we experience other people and look at all of their flaws and the ways that they upset us, and yet we're not aware of those very same things in ourselves. So this is the task of shadow integration, to open your eyes wide and to shine your flashlight in these areas that you may have consciously or unconsciously buried, and bring it all into the center. Say, I see you, come in, you are me. And the psychedelic integration works in the same way. It's because, again, having a psychedelic experience allows us to see so much more of ourselves than we can possibly see just moving through our waking lives. And our task there is to have open eyes and not turn away from the things that are scaring us, but to turn toward them and to say, I see you. What do you want to teach me? I'm your student. I'm here to listen. Show me about myself, show me about the world. And if we can do this, then again, we're not pushing these parts of ourselves away and pretending it's not there, which leads to sickness and neuroticism and all sorts of ways that we don't want to be living. We instead open our eyes fully, look in the direction of our fear, look in the direction of our shame, and say, come in. We hold a generous, compassionate stance toward these aspects. And we say, I am here with you. Teach me, come to me, be with me. And we invite in these, these parts of ourselves that otherwise we would dismiss or try to hide. And so, in this way, the shadow integration and the psychedelic integration do very much go hand in hand.
Wow. And when all of these things come out, like it's talking about, taking a torch and putting it into ourselves and, bringing out the things that have been hidden in the dark, basically. When we're able to bring out all of these things and we find out, oh, I've done some things in the past that are wrong, like I mentioned it earlier, like, maybe you hurt someone like 10 years ago, basically. How then can we go on the journey of forgiving ourselves for the ways we've hurt
Mm.
ourselves in the past, or, maybe forgive others that have hurt us, or maybe get forgiveness from other people around us? How can we go about this journey of getting forgiveness for ourselves and to other people?
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up because I think forgiveness is one of the keys of healing our world. It's one of the major keys to healing our world and to bringing about a state of harmony in which human beings can exist with each other without feeling like we have to constantly be at war or constantly be vigilant or constantly suspicious of the other. And a lot of that does, I think you're right, a lot of that does stem from people's inability to forgive themselves. Because if we can't truly and honestly forgive ourselves, how can we be expected to forgive another
It's
person?
not possible.
Yeah, I am the person I know most intimately of anyone in the world. You're the person you know most intimately. And, perhaps that is why it creates such a great difficulty to forgive, because I know all the things I've done and all the things I'm ashamed of and all the things that I feel badly about. And I'm facing the totality of those things when I look into myself. And so it can be a lot, but it's it's the key. It's one of the keys for certain. So how do we do this? I mean, that's a great question.
Mhm.
you know, it in some sense it comes down to self-compassion, self-love. Can I look at myself in the mirror in my mind's eye? Can I look at my inner child, the little boy that I once was? Can I look at myself and say I love you? I forgive you. I'm here for you. And a, a lot of people have a lot of difficulty with even saying those words or even thinking those words about themselves. But if we can cultivate this state where my love is resonating inside of myself, where I can look at myself in the mirror and feel that love, feel that heart, then that's the step to forgiveness. And there's this concept in Buddhist traditions, metta, metta, which means loving kindness. And people will meditate on metta. And I think this is one of the great techniques for fostering that sense of self love and the sense of forgiveness for self and the other. People will meditate on this particular energy, this particular state, this particular understanding called metta, loving kindness. And by doing so, the more that you enter this state of meditation, thinking about yourself and giving yourself metta, thinking about um, people you love and giving them metta, thinking about people you have a challenging relationship with, thinking about the totality of the human organism that lives on this planet, and just generating that internal sense, that love and kindness that blossoms, that flowers, that emerges from the heart when we're in a truly open and compassionate state. It's extremely powerful. So that's a great way to approach this work. And I would also say, just starting, you know, it can be useful to actually go through and make a list of who do I feel like I have wronged, that is still burning inside of me, that when I think about this person, I feel a sense of shame or I feel a sense of obligation. And make your list and then look at the list and see what you want to do with that. Sometimes a symbolic forgiveness can be appropriate, where you can have someone else stand in for that person and ask for their forgiveness and allow your emotions to flow. Sometimes a direct um, ask for forgiveness is appropriate, where you actually go to the person and you say, "This is how I've wronged you. Can you forgive me?" And take accountability, and so on and so forth. And then again, turning to yourself and maybe writing up your list of all of the ways that you still hold on to shame, or areas where you haven't been able to forgive yourself, and ask yourself, what do I need to do to let go of this? And then just start that process, bringing that sense of loving kindness and asking yourself, can you forgive me? Can you forgive me?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I really love that answer. It's basically like standing in front of the mirror and speaking to yourself like your best friend, basically, and telling yourself,
Mm.
can I forgive you?" Looking at your reflection and yeah, reflecting on your life and the journey so far, and ask yourself, can I forgive myself for this, for that, and bringing that love and kindness, like you said, into it, into that conversation that you have with yourself, and let's go of the shame, let go of the guilt, and let's go of whatever hurts or hatred or that might have come up due to activities in your life. I mean, I really love that. That's so deep. Thank you so much, Chits. That's so deep. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And I believe going through this kind of journey of the psychedelic integration, or maybe shadow integration, then doing or thriving to forgive yourself helps us to become fully getting to that stage of self-actualization, basically. I believe, like, I'm becoming more accepting of yourself. I'm becoming more I don't know, more loving of yourself, basically. Or what do you think about that?
I think that's what the world needs. I think that's what each of us individually needs, because we put so much on ourselves, and we it's easy to move through the world and blame yourself for all of your issues. It's easy to move through the world and blame other people for all of your issues. And the truth is that it's a complex amalgamation of all sorts of things. And just the mere state of being human means we're going to have a lot of issues, health issues, mental health issues, financial issues, stability issues, relationship issues, all manner of issues. And so it's easy to focus on all of that and get mad at ourselves or get mad at the world and feel like, why should I even try, and give up in despair, or give way to anger and say we should just burn it all down because look how unjust everything is, or to give way to sorrow and be unable to get yourself out of bed. And people are really suffering in our world,
Mm.
but love is the answer. And it sounds trite to say, it does, but it's because it's so true. It's so true.
Mm.
Love is the answer. And if we can look beyond the mere catchphrase of that and look beyond the bumper sticker that may be, and really delve into the heart of it, into the deep resounding truth of it, and feel it, and not just know it intellectually but feel it and experience that truth, that love is the way through. The more love that I can inject into a situation, the more love that I can cultivate in my own heart, the better my life is going to be, the better the world is going to be. Full stop. That is just simply true. And so this is our task. And it takes us forgiving ourselves and each other. It takes us creating a world where people feel safe to express their true emotional states. It takes a lot of work, but it's good work, and it's the work that we need. So let's get to work, because love is the thing that will save us.
Yes, yes. Love is the thing that will save us. Yes. And we just have to keep on injecting more love into the world. And, hopefully we'll get some love back also. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it has been so awesome speaking with you, Kate. I really love this. I could continue speaking with you for hours, but I'm sure the listeners will want to, really assimilate all of this that we've talked about, maybe reflect on it a little bit, and maybe ask you some questions later or reach out to you. So what's the best way to, like, get across to you? What's the best way to work with you? What's the best way to contact you?
So people can interested in my coaching can explore texturecoaching.com. That's the website for that. If you feel resonance with some of the ideas I'm speaking and you'd like to read my writing, my website is keithgilmore.com, and I have essays on there that I've written about a lot of these ideas and more. The website for my men's group work is theintegratedman.org. And you can always find me on Instagram or Facebook at keithgilmore.com, DOTCOM. And I'd love to hear from people. And thank you so much, Toby.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kate. I really appreciate this. I'm going to place the link to your website in the show notes of this episode. So I encourage everyone who is interested in your men's program. You have this community-oriented men's program. If they're interested in that, they could connect with you, check you out on your website, and also follow you on all your socials. Basically, I really appreciate this conversation. You taught me a lot about psychedelic integration. You talked to me about forgiveness. You talked to me about the dark. Oh, sorry, I keep on saying dark shadow integration because the dark integration. Shadow integration brings out the dark part of you out, and it makes you shine light on it. But yeah, I really appreciate this. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, kids.
Thank you.
Yes. Wow, you made it to the very end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening. I'm grateful for your time, your love, and your contributions. Subscribe, like, review, and share this podcast. God bless you. Bye. Bye.